Alright, we're just going to do a mock-up. So I've already pulled the front axle, but I've set it back at its original height, as in running boards are level, and so we know where we're starting from. So this is conceptual, what we have planned. We're going to do photo cropping on what we're planning to do. So one of the first things I'll do is I'll lower the rear as well to get ride height to start with. So from here to there is over 12 inches, nearly 13 inches. 100, so what, 320 millimeters. And so we might be as low as 4 inches off the ground or 100 mil off the ground and still be legal in this country, and that is what the 300 SRT rides at. So it'll be interesting to see. I always kicked myself when I haven't had enough to start with. Remember, these doors are just held on with zip ties. There's no frame, as you can see, they're just lying there, and the whole back is separating. There's nothing holding this on. If I pull on that, the whole thing will pop out. Because the wooden frame was eaten out by termites, all those staples which held the top and bottom halves together have nothing to get into. So when we brought it home, the only thing holding it on was this join here. That was it. That was holding the whole roof on, and the doors were just lying inside because they have no structure. So we've only got them there for visual purposes. This is at 110 inch wheelbase, as provided with the front springs that are in there. He did say that he had to use parts from his 98 Willys 98, which is a smaller model, and he did provide another set of leaf springs, so I have a feeling these ones are wrong because it should be 113 inch wheelbase according to the specs. Alright, I've moved it forward to the factory 113 inches, and that looks way better. That makes much more sense of what it should be. So that's one mystery solved, and we'll probably stay with that wheel that far forward or even slightly back. We'll just see what looks the best. Alright, I've lowered the front down from 12.5 inches down to 8 inches, and don't forget I can go as low as 4 inches with the suspension stock from the 300. So well, you wouldn't get a taller tyre under there, that's for sure. It's already tucked up under there. So if we decide to go that high, then I will arch up the whole middle of the guard up and over it, which I reckon will look cool as when it's like that. But well, the front's down, and talk about hot rod rake. Now I'm going to lower the rear. Right. So we've lowered this part of the running board from 12.5 inches down to 6 inches, and this has gone from 12.5 inches to 7 inches. So 5 inches lower, 6 inches lower basically. That is a nice rake, and that is still 2 inches higher than it was on the 300C standard suspension as far as clearance from the bottom of the running board to the ground. But honestly, you're going to ground out everywhere if you go any lower. I don't know how the 300 doesn't do it. Or you could lower the running board, but I'm going to have to completely reshape that front if I'm going to keep that amount of drop in the front. But boy, doesn't it look cool. It's gone from dowdy to dynamic. But yes, wow, it's just so much better looking already without anything else done, just in stance alone. Wow, I love this stance. I've actually raised it another 1/2 inch at the front. I've just got the blocks sitting on the bottom of the springs there. I just turned the blocks the other way. And even with 1/2 inch of rake, it's still got that hot rod look. And I'm not going to do what they call a rubber rake, so I'm not going to put a smaller wheel and tyre, or at least a low profile tyre on the front. I'm not going to do that. It's going to be the same all the way around, because I want good handling. I don't want to lose traction into corners, and I think it needs a big wheel and tyre to fill that front guard. It just looks magical like this, and I suddenly can see more of the vision of what I was hoping to achieve on here. Wow, we're really not going to look at going lower. It's a 5 inch drop in the rear, 6 inch or 5.5 inch drop in the front, and really that's all it needs. It really is, because that'll still leave it practical as well. You've got to be able to get over speed humps and in and out of driveways, to be frank. So what I'm going to do now, I'll talk about some of the body mods. I'm looking at stretching this door 5 inches, which would bring it to not quite to the edge of that. And then this door also 5 inches, so 10 inch longer wheelbase, which will stretch those windows out, and it will make it look chopped even when it's not. I may still do a slight chop on this, but that's why the sheet is there. So when I'm going to try and do some primitive cutting pasting and add 5 inches to there, 5 inches to there, and then with a fairly plain background, it's a little bit easier to manipulate the photos. Well, it'll look better once it's done. I'm not trying to hide my signs. You've all seen them before, and I like my signs. Now, the biggest thing is to run the 300, to cover the track and have the tyre sitting like it is now, further right outboard like that, and that this part of the guard is the same width as what the 300 was. It needs to be 100mm wider there and 125mm wider at the front. It actually tapers in, but that guard has been rolled in. I've actually pulled it out a lot from where it was. I don't know if this side has got the same. So this hasn't been rolled in, so it might just be a case of doing 100mm all the way, and that's all it's done. So I'm going to go 3.5 inches wider in the grill by adding 2 more slots. I'll show those photos, but I've already done a mock-up of that, and it looks so much better than going the full 3, which is 5 inches, 3 extra slots each side, or grill bars. And so the cabin is going to be that wide. Now the problem is that from this inside of that door pillar there to the inside of that door pillar there, compared to the 300, is 1/2 metre difference at the firewall here. So to fit all, and that's just to get all your pedals and everything in. So, but most of that distance is in here. Now, if this is sitting here, plus your normal 4 inches or that I was going to make the body wider anyway, it would make that difference up. So rather than this massive taper like a Model A Ford, the early Model A's, if I reduce that taper and then have it coming out here and then taper down to the grill from there, then I can fit the dash and everything out. So I'm not making the this part any wider at all, I'm only bringing that firewall out to the bottom of that running board. And I also am going to look at, like a 33-34 Ford, of having the doors continue all the way to just short of the running board. So probably a 2-inch reveal or something like that along the bottom like they have. And that will improve the proportions of, great proportions is 1/3 from the window sill to the top of the roof, and then from the window sill to the bottom should be 2/3, and then you get that really nice proportion of that, more of a gangster look, which is all we want, and it's a good hot rod look regardless. The truck was based on those proportions as well, and I love the way it looks out. At the very least, I'll bring the frame cover to run completely flush with the bottom of the doors, so it looks like it's part of the door, and then you get that illusion straight away without actually dropping the doors. I'll just see what it looks like in mock-up, but there's great promise there, and as you can see, a lot of work ahead, and I can't wait. And that I'm going to have to radius the middle of that up higher too, and make that come round more, and I may or may not raise the centre of that the same. So you increase the, rather than increasing the thickness, increase the arch over the wheel. So I've got literally enough suspension travel. I've only got just over 2 fingers at the moment, and I want a little bit more. The height from the ground to the bottom of that lip there is 4 inches taller than on this side here when it's level. That's just how much lower these guards sit than these ones, so there's plenty of scope. I've seen some Duesenbergs or something, I can't remember what it was now, with a higher arch there, and boy do they look good. They look really hunkered down, if you know what I mean, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Just put the wheel in its place just to get a bit of an idea of what it'll look like with a bit more symmetry. Yeah, it's going to get that gangster look. It really is, for sure. If you can imagine this nearly half a metre wider, which is what, 16 inches, it's going to look like it's going to look lowered even when it's not. Don't forget, these are lower than a 33 Ford or a 32 or a Model A or anything like that. These windows are lower, built by Holden, than they were from Willys in the US. That part of the body, they made it lower from the factory. So I've already a good inch, probably 1.5 inches ahead of a 33-34 Ford. So yeah.